Hi friend, welcome to the live study channel. Today I am going to discuss web services interview question and answer. So let's start. My first question is how to create a REST APIs with a Spring Boot. There are several steps to create a RESTful web services API with a Spring Boot, JPA, Hibernate, and MySQL means database. The first one is the first step is create create the Spring Boot project, then define the database configuration, create an entity class, create JPA repository, layer, create REST controller and map API request, create unit testing for API's request and run the unit testing code, and build the run project. Okay, see this. Next question is move to the another question. Another question is how to create the Spring Boot project. The Spring Boot project. Another question is how to create Spring Boot project. So the Spring Boot project is the first to create the initialize. There are two steps to create the Spring Boot project. First step and second. The first point is it's not a mandatory. The first one is the second point. But there are two methods. Is the first method is you can create the Spring Boot project like a Spring initializer.io and create means look on a screen. Okay, a screen just using the Maven project. Okay, and just put down the project name. Okay, and a group by select like it's a Java Spring Boot. Okay, in Java which version you want, and then add the dependency like a web tools, JPA repository, security, MySQL, and then you can generate the project. Is a project generate is a jar file, and then you can add in a Eclipse and then abstract the project, and definitely you can run. Is the first method is this one. Okay, second method is through the Eclipse you can also create the Maven project. Okay, just fill and then also create the Maven project. Okay, move to the another question. Another question is what is the resource in a REST framework? It represents a resource in a REST architecture. On REST's let API, it has the life cycle method like init method, handle method, release method, and contain the context, request and response corresponding to specify target resource. This is now deprecated over server resource class, and you should use that. Okay, move to the another question. Another question is can you use the RESTlet without any web container? Answer yes. RESTlet framework provide default server which can be used handle service requests in a web container. It is not available. Another question is how to display custom error page using RESTful web services. In order to customize error, you need to extend status service and implement get represent status request response method with your custom code. Now assign instance of your custom status service to appropriate status service provider. Okay, you can keep. Suppose my request is successful, then message show response code is 200 means okay. If 500 means internal server. That's like. Another question is what are the advantages of the REST template? The REST template class is implemented of the template method pattern in the Spring framework, similar to other popular template classes like the JDBC template or JMS template. It also simplifies the interaction with RESTful web services. On the client side, you can use it to consume a RESTful web services very easily as shown in this template, REST template. For example, what is example? Okay. Another question is, which HTTP method does REST use? REST can used any HTTP method, but the most popular ones and GET for retrieving a resource, POST for creating a resource, PUT for updating resource, and DELETE for removing a resource from the server. Another question is, what is an HTTP message convert in a Spring REST? An HTTP message converter is a strategy interface that specifies a converter that can convert from and to HTTP request and response. Spring REST use this interface to convert HTTP response to various formats, for example, JDP, JSON, or XML. Each HTTP message converter implementation has one or several IME type associated with it. Spring uses the accept header to determine the content type that its client is expecting. In it will then try to find a registered HTTP message converter that is capable of handling that specific content type and use it to convert the response into that format before sending it to the client. Another question is how to create custom implementation of the HTTP message converter to support a new type of request and response. It's just simple. Just you need to create an implementation of the abstract HTTP message converter and the register using the web MVC configuration adapter extend message converter method with the class and generate the new request and response. That's it. Another question is, what does @request mapping annotation do? The @request mapping annotation is used to map web request to Spring controller method. You can map a request based upon HTTP method, for example, get, post, and various other parameters like get, post, update. For example, if you have developing a REST web services using Spring, then you can use the produce and consume property along with the media type annotation to indicate that this method is only used to produce or consume JSON form. Just like, okay, see this, like @request mapping, you can use the method like which type of method? Request method. Request method means post, and you can also the get and post, and the consume is equal to application / JSON type. Okay, you can use the method means save method at the response body, and they return the repository.save.ebook. That's it. Another question is, each @controller are stereotype. Each @REST controller are stereotype. Both are yes. @controller and @REST controller are stereotype. @controller is actually a specification of Spring @component stereotype annotation. This means that class annotated with the controller with also be automatically detected by the Spring container as a part of containers component scanning process. Another question is, just in a previous question is just I'm little bit or is it explains. Okay, means in this process, okay, it's a container component scanner part, right? And the iterate REST controller is a specification of the iterate controller for the REST web services. It is not only the combination, means is a iterate REST controller is a combination of iterate controller and the iterate response body, right? Means iterate response body and iterate controller annotation, but it is also give the more meaning to your controller class to clear indicate that mean deal with the REST web services. Means a combination of response body and a controller is a call REST controller, right? Move to the another question. Another question is, when do you need iterate response body annotation in a Spring MVC? The iterate response body annotation can be put on a method to indicate that the return type should be written directly to the HTTP response body and not placed in a model or interrupted as a view name. Means just iterate request mapping, okay, method I just put is equal to hello and method equal to dot put method, and then a response body and public string hello world method you can create and return type the hello. Move to the another question. Another question is, what does iterate path variable do in Spring MVC and why it is useful in the REST with the Spring? What does this is one of the useful annotation from the Spring MVC that allow you to read various value from the URL like query parameter. It is a particularly useful in case of creating RESTful web services using the Spring because REST resource identifier are part of the URL. Right. For example, this URL can be helpful if you want to learn more about the abstract ID. Then you can use the iterate path variable annotation of Spring MVC if you are not familiar with Spring MVC annotation, right? Another question is, what is the HTTP status return code for a successful delete statement? There is no strict rule about what status code your REST API should return to after a successfully delete. It can be returned 200 means okay, 240, 204 means no content. In general, if your delete operation is successfully, the response body is empty and return code is 204. If delete request is successfully, then response body is not empty, return 200, right? Another question is, what does CRUD means? CRUD means is a short form of the create, read, update, delete in a REST API. The post is used to create resource, get is used to read our resource, put is used to update our resource, and delete used to remove a resource from the server. Another question is, where do you need iterate enable web MVC? Next question is, where do you need iterate enable web MVC? The At the rate enable web MVC annotation is required to enable Spring MVC when Java configuration is used to do configure Spring MVC in need of XML. It is equivalent to MVC annotation drive. In XML configuration, it is enabled support for the controller and annotated classes that are used request mapping to map incoming request to handler method that are not already familiar with the Spring support for the Java configuration. Another question is, when do you need response status annotation in a Spring MVC? The response status annotation is required during error handler in a Spring MVC and REST. Normally, when an error or exception is thrown at the server side, the web server return a blanket HTTP status code 500 means internal server error. This may work or human use but not for REST client. You need to send them the proper status code like 404. If the resource is not found, that is where you can use the response status annotation, which allow you to send custom HTTP status code along with proper error message in case of an exception. In order to use it you can create custom exception and annotate them using the response status annotation and proper HTTP status code. And region response status means value is equal to http.status.not found, region is equal to no such book means like 404. Okay, and public class book not found exception extend the runtime exception. Okay. But if an exception is thrown from any handler method, then the HTTP error code 404 with the region means no such book, right? Means no such book will be returned to the client. If you are not familiar with the Spring basic concept, okay, of the Spring basic security REST, I suggest you go through the REST with the Spring and learn the Spring security, right? Okay, another question is REST secure? What can you do to secure it? Security is a broad term. It could mean security of the message, which is provided by encryption or cross restriction that are provided using authentication and authorization. REST is normally not secure, but you can secure it by using Spring security. At the very least, you can enable the HTTP basic authentication by using the HTTP in your Spring security configuration file. Similarly, you can expose your REST API using HTTPS if you are underlining the server support HTTPS, right? Through the means you can create the third party auth provider, then move to the first point. Just look to my first point. Okay, means my web services, okay, and then use to auth type, this one, Okay, means third party auth provider like Facebook, just example Facebook, Twitter. Okay, then you can auth means my REST web API connect to website and my REST APIs. Okay, auth type. Then move to the database. You can connect to the database my REST APIs and just simple send to the client applications. This one. Okay, means first point is my CMS platform. Suppose I am using the Java. Okay, my Java platform means Spring Boot application just install here, right? And then use in a third party auth provider also, and then the REST API connect through the auth means like auth 2.0 is the latest, and then use through the token in a database and connect to the client side, right? Okay, move to the another point is what are the idempotent operation. Why is idempotency important? Idempotent operation are those HTTP method that can be called repeatably many times without different outcome. It it would not matter if the method is called only once or many times over. The result should be same. Again, is this again this only applied to the result, not the resource itself. Consider the following. For example, a is equal to 4 is a idempotent, but a plus plus is not a idempotent. I is not a idempotent, but meaning is same. Okay. Another question is just hold on. So I'm discuss about the more about the idempotent. Okay. Suppose if idempotency is important to building a fault tolerant API. Suppose a client want to update a resource through the post. Since the post is not a idempotent method calling, it is a multiple times can be result is a wrong update. What would happen if you send the out the post request to the server, but you get a timeout? Is the resource actually updated? Does the timeout happen during the sending the request to the server or the response to the client? Can we safely retrieve again, or do we need to figure out first what happened with the resource by using idempotent idempotent methods? We do not have to answer this question, but we can safely resend the request until you actually get a response back from the server. Okay. Another question is, do you need Spring MVC in your class path for the web developing RESTful web services? Answer is yes, 100%. You need a Spring MVC in your Java application class path to develop REST web services. The service is using the Spring framework. It is actually a Spring MVC that provides all useful annotation like @REST controller, @REST code, response code, @response body, request body, and @path variable. Okay. Hence, you must be Spring basic.jar or the appropriate Maven entry in your pom.xml file. Thank you for watching this video. Please like and subscribe this video. Thank you so much.